So the Nintendo Switch 2 just keeps on stacking wins. We've got a huge Zelda exclusive dropping next week already. Cannot believe it's November. And that game is the biggest first-party published Switch game to ever be released. Yeah, we got to talk about that. Square Enix is saying that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, not remake, but Rebirth, is going to be peachy keen on the Switch 2. Pokemon, of course, is breaking records. And new Switch 2 versions announced. So what's going on, everybody? It's Zach with SwitchForce. Possibly the most exciting thing, though, new Nintendo wardrobe. I stopped in at Nintendo San Francisco, their brand new store. I got a haul, like I needed a new suitcase for that haul. If you want to see that, let me know in the comments down below. We can go through everything I got. I was blown away by how their in-person merchandise is so much better and better priced than their online. It's the best Nintendo store experience I've ever had. Regardless, we can talk about clothes another time. Today I want to talk about Zelda, because Zelda Age of Imprisonment is dropping next week already. We've made it through Pokemon Legends ZA. We're getting Zelda Age of Imprisonment, and that means the big one, my big one, Metroid Prime 4, is coming soon. Make sure to let me know what game you're looking forward to most in the comments as well. But Age of Imprisonment is huge, literally. I hope you're all ready, because the dark hour has finally descended on Nintendo Switch 2, and you can head to Tartarus in Persona 3 Reload, available right freaking now. This is one of the most phenomenal and lovingly crafted remasters I've ever seen, and Switch 2 is the perfect place to take such a jam-packed and involved adventure on the go. The game's oozing the style. It's absolutely one of the best interfaces I've ever seen. The water effects on the menus will blow you away, and the game's brilliant storyline will captivate you. You get to hang out in modern day Japan by day and then head to Tartarus and duke it out in intense battles with your persona at night. The game story is surprisingly dark and deep, and there's incredible characters that you meet along the way that you'll forge bonds with, that you'll build friendships with, and that you will learn to love. This game is an absolute must-play JRPG on Switch 2. There's a demo available, so make sure to click the link in the description down below to check out Persona 3 Reload for yourself. Every time you click the link, it helps support the channel and allows me to keep making videos for all y'all every single day. So big thanks to Sega for sponsoring this video, and check out Persona 3 Reload now. It's freaking epic. Age of Imprisonment looked like one of the most impressive games for Switch 2, just based on the amount of characters they're packing on the screen. Okay, Zelda and all of her friends and all of her enemies are all gonna be there at once, which is pretty wild, considering that this game is 42.7 gigabytes. 42.7. Now, if you're a Call of Duty player on PlayStation 5, you're like, hey, that's slight work. But if you're a Nintendo Switch longtime fan, you will recognize that this is huge. This is massivo, okay? To put this in perspective, Mario Kart World was like 21 gigabytes. That's half the size. DK Bonanza was like 8.5 gigabytes. That's 1/4 of the size. Past Hyrule Warriors games were like 1/4 of the size. And if we look at the biggest Nintendo published Switch 1 game, which is Tears of the Kingdom, I believe, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's Tears of the Kingdom, that game is around 18 gigabytes, so this is over double that, which is crazy. I'm not saying this game is going to be twice as big or anywhere near twice as good as Tears of the Kingdom, but the fact that they are able to put this much in there, it tells you that they're prioritizing, in my opinion, emphasizing a ton of assets, a ton of large assets, and a ton of really nice looking assets. When it comes to this file size, I don't know that Hyrule Warriors is going to be like, a 70-hour game, but I do know that they are making sure that they're not cutting corners in terms of the performance of this title, and they're not cutting corners in terms of how they pack in the intensity of the environments, visually and gameplay-wise, which I'm very stoked for, very excited for. I think this is gonna be a real treat. I'm looking forward to covering it with all of you next week. Cannot wait to dive in. And I have a sneaking suspicion that this is gonna be one of the hidden gems of the year. I don't know, I feel like Nintendo just, third time's a charm with Bandai here, working on Hyrule Warriors. I think they're going to deliver a knockout, and I think the performance boost and the benefits we get from Switch 2 are going to be like, wow, this really delivered. And it better for 42.7 gigs, because that's a lot of your storage taken up by one game, so it better be worth it. Huge amount of game, clear your storage, check how much you've got. We are ready. Next up, let's talk some Switch 2 versions. All right, Ball X Pit, or Ball Pit as it's commonly referred, is out today on Switch 2. They surprised everyone with a free update to the Switch 2 version, or if you want to get it for the first time, the Switch 2 version. This game is one of the best indies of the year. I think it's super addictive, and in some ways, I like this thing better than Bellatra. Blatro is 2024's indie gem, and while Silk Song and Hades 2 obviously are the tentpole titles, this one is going to be that addictive type run-based gameplay where you just want to keep going. Ball Pit is like Brick Breaker meets Vampire Survivors meets Pinball meets your Switch 2, and thankfully the Switch 2 version has 90 frames per second and some really nice polish. No mouse controls, which I was surprised by. No mouse controls. Like, could we use the Joy-Con for the mouse? I'm having to wait till freaking Metroid Prime 4 to really put some actual usage in for the mouse mode. I guess I could play Mario Paint. I guess I could play Civilization, but I'm just going to wait for Metroid Prime 4. I was hoping Ball Pit would have it, but a great game and a super nice pickup that's niftily getting a free Switch 2 upgrade. Gotta love it. Lorelei and the Laser Eyes and Sayonara Wild Hearts are two titles that in 2026 have been confirmed to get Switch 2 versions. All right, this is Annapurna Interactive bringing some of their best. I freaking love Annapurna. I think they do awesome work. And while I recognize the power of Sayonara Wild Hearts, I gotta say that I much prefer Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. No word yet on what exactly they're going to do with these upgrades. No word yet if they are going to be paid, if they're going to be free, how they're going to handle it. I sure hope they're free. I think that's the greatest way to reward previous buyers and say, hey, you can continue this title, because yes, you're not making money on a new sale, but in a way you kind of are going to make money on a new sale, because if I'm going back and playing Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, or you're going back and playing Sayonara Wild Hearts, you're going to evangelize that game to your friends, family, others on the internet, etc., and that could create new sales. If it's a paid thing, you're going to have to restart marketing and trust that you're going to be able to generate a new audience, and you're going to piss off the people that just want to transfer their game or revisit the game from Switch 1 onto Switch 2. I think you got to do these things free. I understand Nintendo first party is going to charge for their Switch 1 updates. Frankly, I'm surprised we have not seen more announced. We have not heard more announced. We've got one in the hopper, which is the Super Mario Wonder update coming next year. Other than that, it's kind of all quiet. I think they'll definitely do more, but I'm wondering if they are going to pause on how many they do. They use them as sort of a stopgap piece of coverage, but they've got a lot of titles already announced for next year, and there's definitely bound to be a lot more. Couple that with third parties going super hard, maybe there's just not as much need or as much room for Switch 2 versions, and honestly, I'm fine with that. Give us a nice little upgrade, give us a frame rate increase, something of that sort. Don't make us pay. That's the big deal. Like $80 for this Switch 2 version is fine and dandy when you're just buying like the $20 upgrade. It's still a lot. Sometimes $10 would be better. But when you're buying like this Switch 1 game for $80, even though it has additional content and you haven't played through the original content, it's sort of like, what are we doing here? Shouldn't this be going on a discount? Like when I buy a new console, the games from the last console typically are cheaper and Nintendo is trying to upsell you. I understand they're adding content and that's great and all, but at the end of the day, if I was someone that, say, didn't own Kirby and the Forgotten Land, or I didn't own Mario Party Jamboree, I don't know about you, but I think I'd rather pay $35 for just the Switch 1 version versus $80 for the Switch 2 version. Like, put that Switch 1 version on sale. That's how you incentivize me to buy it, not by adding content and then making this bundle extra priced. Some might say overpriced, but I'll just say I'm looking forward to Lorelei and the Laser Eyes on Switch 2 in 2026, and Ball Pit is great, available today. Like, that's one of my favorite games of the year. Let's talk a little Final Fantasy Rebirth. Remake ain't out yet, guys, but Rebirth is already highly anticipated. Square Enix has confirmed that the full Final Fantasy VII trilogy is going to be delivered on Switch 2. That's good news, because yeah, Remake is a nice game, and yeah, it's looking and running great on Switch 2 thus far, but Remake is an old game. That was a COVID-era game, came out in 2020, and that's, half a decade ago. But they're saying that Final Fantasy VII Rebirth, the newer title that is much more demanding from a hardware and performance standpoint, is going to do just fine, that they've got experience with the Switch 2, they've got experience with the Steam Deck, and don't worry, just be happy and be excited. So what I want to say, because all of that experimentation stuff we've done on the PC to make sure of that, Nintendo players in the future, you really don't need to worry at all. They're going to get a version that is just as satisfying and just as high quality as the first game, if not higher, and that is music to my ears, because that's a much higher fidelity game and a much higher demand game, and it's going to be just as good or better. I think Square is going to prove to be one of the top tier developers. Capcom seemed to be the ones that were able to milk the most out of the Switch 1. Is Square Enix poised to be the developer and the publisher that can milk the most out of the Switch 2? So far, seems so good. That third game is going to be a real teller as well, because that's going to be a brand new release. Even for PS6, I don't know when that comes out. Obviously, they haven't shown anything yet. Give us Rebirth and we'll go from there. But I'm so blown away and so pleased by not only the third-party games we've seen thus far, but all of the verbiage and words coming out of third-party mouths. It's not like, hey, if we do magic tricks and we bend over backwards and we pull out the old crank and the wrench and the screwdriver, we can piece together a Switch 2 version, hit the panic button. It's like, oh, we can just do a great game. That's not the case of how it was described on Switch 1. Miracle Port was a thing because they needed miracles to make a game like Witcher 3 happen. You don't need miracles to make Final Fantasy VII Rebirth happen. We are in the clear. We are doing great. We are doing good. Fine and dandy. RE9 is going to run great. Elden Ring, I don't know what your holdup is. I don't know what your problem is. I think that's a core development problem because that game ran poorly at times on all the platforms. So they've got issues there that I don't think have anything to do with Nintendo or the Switch 2. I'm really proud of the Switch 2 and where it's at from a third-party standpoint, but I've said that enough. Just know that you don't have to worry. Square Enix says, hey, even the newer Final Fantasy VII game is going to be a bombastic delivery on Switch 2, which can't wait to hear when that's announced. Hey, bring it out next year. You're doing January for Final Fantasy VII Remake. Give us July for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. That's plenty of time to beat the game, and it keeps things fresh. I don't want to wait 5 years for Rebirth on Switch 2, and I guarantee we won't be. Last but certainly not least, in this jam-packed day of Nintendo Switch 2 news, Pokemon Legends ZA, while not the best-selling Pokemon game ever, has become the biggest US physical games launch in terms of units and dollar sales since Tears of the Kingdom. All right, Nintendo keeping atop the heap. You know, we've had Call of Duties come out. We've had a lot of other titles in the last 2.5 years. Now, of course, digitally they do very well, but in terms of physical, go out and buy that thing at the store, your Walmarts, your Best Buys, your Targets. This is the best that it's been since Tears of the Kingdom. 2.5 years, and we're back with something that tops this game. Matt Piscatella with the report saying that it's the biggest new physical video game launch since LOZ TOTK, and that's Nintendo doing work for you. What's very impressive here, though, is that many of the game sales were on Switch 2. 50% is what they're saying. In some territories, it was 49%, but basically half of all copies sold for Pokemon Legends ZA are on the Switch 2, and I think that's a pretty successful upgrade path percentage for the big N. They got to be pleased with that, knowing that you could have saved, held out, waited with your Switch 1 to get Pokemon Legends ZA. They're probably disappointed that this is one of the lowest selling Pokemon titles, if you consider it a mainline title, but I don't really. It's being sort of packaged up that way, like, oh, this is the lowest mainline Pokemon launch since Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, but is it really mainline? Are the Legends games really mainline? I don't really consider it as such. I think this is a spin-off, and I think you can treat it as such, but I'm glad that it's selling physically. That's great for the enduring longevity of physical products and of cartridges and of games on cartridge as we continue to show that that's what we'll support. Sometimes we don't have a choice, but if we do, we will support games on cartridges. I don't even know how Hyrule Warriors is going to work. Is that even on the full cartridge? I'll have to look that up. Is Age of Imprisonment on the cart? Because that's 42 gigabytes. Do they have a 42 gig card? I don't think so. And I stand corrected. It is not a game key card. It's on the cart. Nintendo bringing out the big marshmallow, the big chocolate block. It's actually a red block. So the raspberry rectangle du jour is coming your way with a 42 gig card. Ooh, that's a bad look for game key cards because they can put 42 gigs on, so can just about everybody else. But alas, we'll talk game key cards, of course, and revisit that later down the line. I'm sure it'll be a factor, and I'm sure it'll be in the news once again. But for now, biggest Zelda game, it's getting a huge amount of gigabytes. Can it deliver a huge score like those other Zelda titles? And what do you think about some of the new Switch 2 versions? Are you interested in Ball X Pit? And are you excited that Square Enix says, hey, our newest Final Fantasy game can run just great on the Switch 2? That speaks volumes and says, hey, we are in a different era, the best era. And we just had the best era. So let's enjoy it, live it up. In the meantime, everybody, thanks so much for watching. Stay safe, stay healthy, stay happy, stay positive out there. Love you all lots. So many great games to play, so little time. See you in the next video. SwitchForce out.